Welcome to episode number one of the Miree podcast. I'm your host, Chris Miree. And what we're going to do, basically, the premise of this podcast, we're going to talk about college football every week. I'm just going to make a little short podcast about all the big matchups for college football. And as well, we're going to give betting predictions too. So, for me, I've seen a lot of podcasts and a lot of them just drag on. So I really want to just key in on the key matchups and give my predictions for them and give my own personal take on things. With college football coming up, there's been a lot of interesting changes, I would say, with the conference realignment and the much anticipated 12-team playoff coming in. It's only going to make for a lot of great matchups in the regular season, and it's going to be high drama when we get down, to the last couple of weeks. And so this first week, we've got Georgia-Clemson at the 12 o'clock game. This is going to be a rematch from that 2021 game. That was a true barn burner with Georgia winning 10-3. And I think for Georgia, obviously we all know that they belonged in the playoff and they would have definitely made it, for the 12-team playoff. And I think, the playoffs, the way they played out, obviously I think Georgia would have been in and probably won their third straight. So it's not like this team has fallen off at all. And I think, coming into this season, they're probably the best team top to bottom. And you've lost some key players, with Brock Bowers, their tight end, and McConkey, the receiver. They've lost some. They lost their center, which was a key piece, obviously, for the offense, and then some key defensive line guys. But as you can see, if you just look at the recruiting rankings, Georgia hasn't fallen off at all, and they're still either one or two in most of the recruiting sites. So I would say, if you're looking at this and you're looking on the other side at Clemson, Clemson, they were a force for a while, and Dabo obviously has done great things with that program, winning 2 national titles and defeating Alabama. But I just think that the way they've been trending the past couple of years, it's really tough to stay at the top. I mean, there's only a very few teams that have stayed at the top, and you look at Alabama, what Nick Saban did. I mean, that just doesn't happen. It's usually a 3 or 4 year window, maybe even less than that. And I think Clemson, I just think their window's passed. And I don't think that they're not going to fall off and be a base, go 2-10, but I just think they're a middle of the road team, and you're coming into this first game, they're playing at a neutral site in the Georgia Dome. I just don't see them having a chance against Georgia. That crowd's going to be about 70-30. They say the tickets are split, but that Georgia owns that dome. It's in Atlanta. It's in their backyard. Now Clemson's not far away, but they don't have the fan base Georgia does. And I think, basically having a home game for that first game, being excited, probably having a little chip on their shoulder from last year, and we're looking at spread here, and you've got Georgia, I believe right now at most books you're getting they're 13.5 point favorite. If you can get it at 13.5, I would take that all day. I think a lot of people are saying it's going to be a defensive game, and I think Clemson obviously is going to rely on their defense to start out, and with Georgia replacing some guys on the offensive side, they might be able to keep it close for a while. But I just think Georgia, with the formula they have, kind of mimicking what Alabama did with Saban, having a strong defense and playing that pro-style offense, running the ball through it to the tight end. I think Georgia's just going to wear them down over the game. You might see a 13-7, 13-10 halftime, and Georgia just blows the doors out and wears them down in the second half. So for this game, my official prediction, I'm going to come out and say Georgia's going to win 35-13. I don't think Clemson has the offensive firepower to stay with Georgia, and I think Georgia just is going to out-talent them. I think they have way too many horses on their side of the ball, on the offensive and defensive line. And right now they're still a juggernaut, and I don't see them slowing down, especially in this game. So my prediction for this game is going to be 35-13. And like I said, from the betting standpoint, I would take I would take Georgia minus 13.5. The over under is 49.5, and you know, it very well may be a 35-28 game. I may be completely wrong, but I just don't, like I said, I just don't think Clemson has the offensive firepower to stay with Georgia, and I don't think they're going to be able to put anything up in the second half because I think Georgia's just going to wear them down. Like I said, using the Saban formula, run the ball, pound the ball, play great defense, and over time it kills you in the second half. They're going to be running downhill on them. And Clemson just doesn't have they don't have a dynamic playmaker. I think their quarterback, he's still young, but he doesn't show me anything that I would see would be a huge difference maker. He doesn't have that Johnny Manziel or Tim Tebow like ability. So for me, it takes a dynamic player to beat those type of defenses, and I just don't think he can do it. So there we go. So my official prediction again. Georgia 35, Clemson 13, and I'm gonna my betting pick would be, if you can get it, I would take Georgia minus 13.5. Like I said, I think they're going to cover that with ease in the second half. It might be close in the first half, but I think, like I said, that second half is just going to be the difference maker in the game. So that's mine for the first one. Now we got second game. I've got 4 key games, so I'm just going to go over these 4. So for the second game, and I'm going in time order, so that Georgia Clemson is a 12 o'clock kickoff Eastern. So if you're looking at it, that one's going to be the first one. Second game, we've got Miami at Florida. Now this one's going to be Florida's hosting. It's not a neutral site game, so that's really key when you're looking at these early games. You want to see where the site is because it really makes a difference, especially in the SEC. If you've got a home game, I mean, that crowd at Florida, I think everybody knows it's one of the top 5 crowds. I've personally been myself. I mean, the sound is deafening, especially for a big game, and so you've really got to factor that in. Despite, maybe Miami has a little bit of an advantage, and Florida's been trending downward, I would still factor that in. It definitely helps. So looking at this game. We've got Miami coming back, and they're on preseason 19, and they're still in the ACC, by the way. They didn't move. And then you've got Florida, which, they're coming off a pretty tough season last year. And their coach is one of the top coaches on the hot seat. And, obviously, Florida had trouble. But, I mean, you're playing in the SEC, and people don't realize, yes, Alabama and Georgia have sustained success, and they've been on top for a long time with Saban, and Kirby Smart doing what he's doing. And now that Saban's gone, but, Saban was really – I feel like that's kind of an anomaly. You got to put those two teams aside. But, I mean, when you're playing in the SEC and you've got Texas and Oklahoma coming in this year, I mean, it's just going to be – they say, oh, this team's got a tough schedule. I mean, every team has a tough schedule when you're adding Texas and Oklahoma and you're keeping one strong non-conference game, and obviously with Florida, they've got Miami to open up, and then you've got to play Florida State. You've still got to play Tennessee. You've still got to play, looking down, let's see, you still got to play Texas A&M. You got to play Georgia, Texas, LSU. I mean, but you can look at what my argument is, you can look at any SEC team. They're all playing tough schedules. So, and what happens is, they end up just beating each other up. And so, when you have teams that are going 8-4 or 9-3, they've got to lose. Some teams have to lose games. Doesn't mean you put Florida in any other conference, they probably go 9-3 or 10-2. So when you're looking at it, you got to have a certain perspective on, this team's not very good. Well, no, you're in the SEC. You're in the top 20. I mean, almost all the upper echelon SEC teams could go in any league and go 10-2, 11-1, easy. Okay. Well, let's just have some perspective. They're played in the SEC, so yes. Compared to other SEC teams, they might be in the bottom 6, 7. I'm not sure. I think they're middle of the road. And then you look at the other side with Miami. And, Miami's been recruiting well. They've had some recent success. That I don't think Miami's some juggernaut. They're not the Miami from the 80s. They're not the Miami from the early 2000s. So, like I said, when I'm looking at this, and you're looking at first game matchups, it's always tough. Now, like I said before, Florida's playing at home, so that's already an advantage. That crowd's going to be jacked up. They've been waiting a game for 6-7 months now. I mean, it's gonna be crazy. Now, if you're Miami, like I said, what you want to do, you got to come in, you got to put your foot down, you got to come out early, you got to come out banging, offensively. Yeah, you really got to make a statement. Now, let's look at this line here. Miami's getting 2.5. Over unders 54.5. I'm just looking at that from my betting experience and my experience watching these type games between Florida State, Miami, Florida, Florida State. I mean, early season, I think the under's kind of money, to be honest with you. If I'm just looking at the two different ones now, the 2.5 is basically telling you if Miami's favored 2.5 on the road, and that's basically telling you, this is a wash right here. I mean, Vegas is saying, hey, any team can win. We're going to get a lot of money on Miami minus 2.5. But that crowd factor, like I said, that's really playing a part in this. So if we're talking about that, but to be honest with you, I really personally think it's a coin flip. I mean, I just don't think Miami's that much better than Florida. If you look at everything on paper and the talent that Florida has, yes, they've had some struggles, but I really think they're going to come out on fire. I mean, they're going to come out pumped. That crowd is going to be behind them. So I think ultimately, I think it's going to be a tight game. So what we're going to do is my prediction on this game. I'm actually going to go, if I had to give you a prediction, I'm going to go Florida 20-17. So I think they're going to cover that 2.5, but my betting play would be the under for sure. I think this is definitely going under 54.5. I just don't see either offense putting up that many points. Just don't think either one has the firepower. And being that it's a rivalry game, they don't play all the time. But last matchup they played was 2019. But before that, it's been obviously it used to be a big time matchup. And let's just look at the previous matchup, August first opening game like this one, 2019, Florida won 24-20. So if you're like I said, you can go back further than that. But I mean, this is going to be a tightly contested game, and like I said, I just don't think it's going to turn into a shootout. I think it's going to get real defensive in the second half, and it's going to be a fight. And with Florida playing at home and being a true home game, I'm going to give them advantage. But like I said, my official play for this one is going to be the under 54.5. All right, so that's 2 down, and we got 2 more big games. So we're looking at, and I would say too, I think they got these games the first week. It looks like they got them spaced out pretty good. Obviously, some of these games you would like to have at night, but you don't want to just have a bunch of dead games in the day and have them all at night. I kind of like that you've got them spaced out where, you can watch Clemson, Georgia first. Then you've got the Florida, Miami game at 3:30. And another note, that's going to be a ABC game as the ABC has picked up SEC this year. So it's going to be an ABC game. So it should be interesting there. So anyways, we're going to get into these last 2 games, and so for these last 2 games, they've got these are going to be spaced out too as well. You're going to have one night game that I'm just about to talk about now. It's going to be Notre Dame, Texas A&M, and then the last game I'm going to talk about is going to be USC LSU, which is going to be a night game as well. So, and that's on a Sunday. So, great job, I would say. First week by spacing these games out, they're all pretty much standing alone, and that's what you like to see. And anyway, so this Notre Dame Texas A&M game, this is an interesting game, and with the conference realignment, Notre Dame has continued to stay independent on their own. Even though they pretty much have an ACC schedule, but they don't want to give in. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out and how long they're going to be able to hold on to their true independence. But and this game is also going to be on ABC, which So they've got pretty much like a doubleheader going with Florida, Miami, and Notre Dame A&M, which I like. That's great. So the betting line on this game, and just another note, from what I've seen, a lot of teams. I just want to speak on this as well before I get into this game. A lot of teams have gone away from the neutral site and back to the on-campus, which I think is great. I'm a huge proponent of that. I think there's nothing being into a lot of SEC games myself and being on campus for a lot of the big ones. I mean, there's no comparison to an on-campus stadium. The atmosphere is just unmatched. And, you have a lot of these neutral site games, and they try to split it 50-50. And obviously they give a lot of tickets to corporate sponsors who don't care about the game. And it just makes for, it's just not the same. And, a lot of these games are in domes too, which I really don't care for either. Obviously, with the weather being hot, yeah, you'd like to have it in a climate-controlled stadium, 72 degrees. But like I said, there's just nothing like being on campus. So, anyways, this is key though when you're breaking down from a betting standpoint. You really need to know where the game's going to be, and also, if it's in a neutral site game. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be inside. So you have to factor that in when you're thinking about the betting standpoint, from a weather angle, which, weather can dictate a lot in football. So anyways, this one's going to be at Texas A&M. So big home game for the Aggies. Now they have an interesting crowd with with all the traditions and stuff they have, with the different chants and things they do. And it's a huge stadium. I believe it's over 100,000 people. So Notre Dame coming in, being number 7 ranked in A&M 20. You're looking at the line here. A&M is -3 in 3 points here, and the over/under 46.5. That's an interesting total. Because like I said in the previous game, it was 54.5, which is a huge number to me for a big time matchup. Now this one, 46.5. That's a lot better with that. I think that's that could go either way. That's a pretty good line right there. But as far as the 3 goes, I actually like Notre Dame getting 3 points here. I think they could win outright. Honestly, I think they have the better team. I think A&M is an interesting team because, as I talked to you about before, they have a lot of highly recruited classes. They were number 1 just a couple of years ago, and obviously it's an interesting setup there with the fan base. I'm having a hard time believing in A&M. And their record in big games is not great. And to have this as the first game with the Notre Dame team coming in that's kept their coach, has some good continuity. I'm having a hard time believing in this A&M team, and I think obviously that having the game at home is going to help them, but Notre Dame talent-wise, it's just better to me. And that's weird saying that with A&M having that number 1 recruiting class, but A&M is just a classic underachiever. I mean, coming into it, and they just find a way to choke every year and lose games they shouldn't. And I think that line's going to continue to shrink. So if you can get the game at 3, I mean, that's obviously a steal. If you can get Notre Dame +3, I would take it any second of the day. And, I don't know. I just don't see it. I think, Texas A&M has some good guys up front. They got a good defense in front. They're going to have to put some pressure on this Notre Dame team. But I don't know. I'm not seeing it. And that's my take on it. I'm gonna go final score prediction. I'm gonna go Notre Dame 24, A&M 17. And the under may or may not hit. But I think the better play is going to be Notre Dame +3. All right. So we're going to go last game here. It's going to be a Sunday night, and this one's going to be neutral site. This is in Vegas. You got LSU and USC. Exciting game, I think. Just from the teams, you got USC coming off an interesting year. USC, they've got a tough schedule, and they, with Lincoln Riley, the coach. What's he going to do? How's he going to come out? And they've got some quarterbacks. They lost Caleb Williams, obviously. But I think the talent's there. Vegas, neutral site game. It's going to be interesting. You got Miller Moss coming in as a starter for USC. He looked really good in the bowl game. And he can throw the ball. It's just going to be interesting to see what he can do against LSU. Obviously, everybody knows LSU's defense. They've always been good, and they've always been able to recruit on that side of the ball. They're always going to have talent. That's tough for any quarterback to go up. But you're starting out a neutral site game. USC, I think LSU may or may not have more fans there. It'll be interesting to see. But like I said, this is their first game, and I think LSU probably has a little bit more talent, but USC, this is one they could steal from LSU, since it's being the first game, being a neutral site game, and having that quarterback, how he's going to handle that pressure from LSU, that'll be a key to me. Is LSU going to come out blitzing them, and how he's going to be able to handle that? And you're looking at it right now. LSU's a 4.5-point favorite. The over/under 63.5, and USC put up a lot of points last year. Just in their last five games last year, if you're looking at it, the Cal 99, Washington 94, Oregon 63, UCLA 58, and Louisville 70. So you're looking at it from a total standpoint. The USC was putting up numbers. Whether they were winning or losing, they were putting up a lot of points. Their defense just couldn't stop anybody. And LSU actually was in some high-scoring games to finish the season as well, with almost every game going over the total. If not, I believe every game did go over the total. So maybe they're playing off a little bit from last year. But like I said, you always got to look at those first game jitters, especially with these non-conference games. I just think a lot of them are going to be tighter than you think. That's why I'm liking the unders on most of them. So anyways, like I said, LSU's 4.5-point favorite. They have Brian Kelly coming back for another season. And, this will be interesting. And LSU was in a really tough matchup last year against Florida State. Going back and forth, and be pretty high scoring. But I don't know with this one. This is out here in Vegas. It's a different animal out here. It'll be interesting to see how they both come out. But with this 4.5, that's a tough one. I really think that I think USC has a little advantage here, and LSU's also bringing out a new quarterback with losing Gene Daniels last year, which was such a big part of their offense, But right now, if I had to predict, I would go. I'm gonna go with the upset here. I'm gonna take USC plus the 4.5. I think USC might even win outright. I would say that if USC can get some momentum, and we'll see how LSU's defense looks against Miller Moss, and how USC's defense looks against LSU's new quarterback. That's going to be the key. How these new quarterbacks come out and how they play, how they respond, how they react. I think both teams are going to blitz. So, I think LSU has more talent? Yes. But also think, with this being in Vegas, like I said, USC's going to have a fighting chance here. And I just like the 4.5 on it. I don't know about the over-under. I think it's going to be a little tighter than that. I could see a 31-28 type game. But for my final prediction, I'm going to go USC 35, LSU 30. I think USC is going to win outright, but I would take that 4.5 for sure. And so there you go. That's my 4 games. Each week I'm going to take 4 or 5 games, 4 or 5 of the biggest games, depending on the week, and break them down and give you my betting prediction. I think it's going to be a really fun and exciting year this year. A lot of great matchups, and it's going to be a really fun SEC. College football season and SEC. That's even before you get to the 12-team playoff. I mean, it's just unbelievable the kind of the matchups we're going to see this year. And so it's going to be a great, exciting season. And I look forward to bringing you my personal takes every week and my predictions on the game. And I hope that you like what I have to say. So I'm going to be signing off for now. This is Chris Miree on the Miree Podcast. Thank you.